Okay, so welcome everybody to episode 7. There's been quite a bit of a gap since episode 6. I've taken a little pivot in these podcasts. You know, in past podcasts, you've heard from the Richard Pettys, Bob Hunters, Lisa Larders, Mayor Cam Guthrie, sports and entertainment personality Kate Burness. And now what I want to do is I want to shift to those up and coming leaders that are out there doing great work in the right way. So you can hear their stories. Most importantly, they can share a little bit about how they're getting where they're getting and what they believe in. So maybe that helps you on your journey if you're in the same spot as they are. But oh boy, am I excited to start with CJ Tremblay. CJ and I'll give you a little bit of an intro and then I'm going to pass it over to CJ to fill in any gaps. But CJ and I worked together at Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. According to her LinkedIn profile, the title was Operations Assistant to the General Manager, which really meant the General Manager. You did a lot of work. And what I loved about you was you were a leader back before you had a title. And you know, we talk a lot about that. You don't have to have a title to be a leader. And you had this great ability to pull people together in tough situations like opening a soccer stadium. So that's kind of where CJ and I worked together to start. And then I recruited CJ over to a company called the Printing House Canada and made her the marketing manager and put her through training that she hated. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about that. She was phenomenal. She really modernized our marketing in a pretty dry printing company at that point, from a marketing perspective. And then she moved on into the education world. She started at University of Toronto, and we'll fast forward to her role today, which is Manager of Marketing and Strategic Initiatives for Paragon Testing. What I love about CJ is she's also been very philanthropic and gives back in her time. Starting at CJ, I want to make sure I get this right, from 2009 to 2012, she was a volunteer co-chair at Crohn's and Colitis Foundation of Canada, my apologies. And now today is a founding member and vice president of the board at the Climate Action Network for International Educators. And I can't wait to figure out all of that. Overall, if I had to do that intro in 10 seconds, CJ is one of those great people out there. She really is. And I'm lucky to have had her in my life and to have worked with her. So I'm glad to have her on today. CJ, what did I screw up in that intro? What did I miss?
Nothing ever. That was perfect. Thank you. Very kind. So excited to be here.
Awesome.
It's nice to be together again.
It feels that way, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, as much as it can, right? Being virtual, but that would be better, like being live. But yeah, I agree. I'd love to start, if you don't mind, and thank you for doing this. Let's talk a little bit about your journey from Laurentian, right before, and you got your EMBA at Georgetown University, if I'm not mistaken. I'm jealous. Yeah. Awesome. I really want an EMBA. I can't find the time or the money right now. That's my bugaboo. But good on you. I remember you making that decision. I think we talked about it when I was maybe at a conference speaking for one of your organizations. I thought it was around that time. But anyways, started Laurentian. Talk to me about your journey from Laurentian to Mlsc to TPH to now.
Yeah, it's been a trip. If you asked 17-year-old CJ who was super, those who can't do teach is how I was with sports. I just couldn't play a game to save myself, but loved the game, all the games, and found myself, if you asked 17-year-old CJ, there's no way I'd be working in education. What? Just such a disconnect for future self. But so I was for the love of the game, I guess, I just loved sports so much, despite the fact that I was really spectacularly terrible. And so got into the Bachelor's of Commerce program at Laurentian because my parents were you have to go to university and get a degree, which is very grateful. At the time, I didn't think beyond just what I was going to do, maybe go to college and go right into the sports that way, but they wanted me to get a degree, so I went and got one where I could specialize in sports admin. So all my classes were sports finance and sports marketing. And I literally coming out of school got that internship at Mlsc. I was a Sens fan, so people were very confused Listen, you worked for them as a Habs fan. I worked for them as a Sens fan. We were
but
a pair.
there's a huge difference between the Habs and the Sens, but let's not go there.
Yeah, let's just keep this positive and friendly. So coming out of sport, like MLSE, just being like, what an amazing privilege to get to work for the leading sports and an entertainment industry company in Canada. And we had a great team. Oh my God, what an experience to get to start Toronto FC and BMO Field and really see the Marlies grow at Ricoh Coliseum. So it was just such a great first position. I went from intern to full-time staff because you gave me that chance. And
you earned that chance, to be clear.
It was a wonderful 4.5 years, and I was really hungry to grow. And for me, it felt like a difficult place to grow. And sort of after you left, we connected, and there was really interesting opportunities. So I guess the path of my career has always been do what feels right for learning more has driven me. And taking opportunities that perhaps on the outside look disconnected. I think people thought it was weird that I left sports because it was such a huge part of my identity to go work for a printer and paper. People literally thought I was going to work for The Office and Dunder Mifflin, Dunder Mifflining it, right?
In fairness, we were a little that way. There was a little Michael Scott in me, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna gloss right over that, move on. And it's such a good opportunity to grow. It was a much smaller organization. I had so much more visibility and driven by curiosity and wanting to learn. I just got opportunity after opportunity to take that to the next level, and met incredible leaders who were patient and generous with their time, and saw in me some potential, I guess, and were very kind and indulging me. And that led to an opportunity at the University of Toronto, which I never would have expected. And being at the University of Toronto made me appealing to an employer that was in the industry where I now find myself. And so working in education at the University of Toronto was really appealing to a new company establishing itself in Canada that had massive roots globally, in Australia, India, tons of sort of Southeast Asian presence in terms of the student recruitment and international education business, and be establishing an office in Canada and really looking to grow that. They were looking for a marketer who understood the education landscape, and I fit that. And so I was approached by that organization and spent 4.5 years there, and just kept learning, kept getting opportunity after opportunity. I remember at first when I was approached by the recruiter being like, no thanks, my job at university is good. I like this. International student recruitment and English language testing, that sounds made up. And when I met, the recruiter was like, no, meet this person. And the conversation, I've gone to places because of people and because of the opportunity to learn. And that was the case when I went to IDP, where I worked for 4.5 years, and then 2.5 years ago, moving to sort of across the country for an opportunity in Vancouver to do what I was doing, but specifically for a Canadian company looking to grow, that aligned with sort of the values that I had in terms of the vision for a company in Canada. So it's just been my path and my journey has been driven by opportunities to learn and grow, and for both myself, but doing things that felt right in terms of alignment of, So I just can't even imagine, I wouldn't be where I am if I hadn't gone to the printing house and had an opportunity directly because of that experience at the University of Toronto. And I wouldn't have gone to IDP if I hadn't have been at U of T. So it's just kind of, sometimes it feels like it's weirdly out of my control. And the only thing I controlled was my curiosity and openness to hearing things that I perhaps would not have entertained before.
Cool. I'd like to, and I do want to get to today and your team and what you do, but let's save that for a little later. I do want to stay on the journey. No, here's what I heard out of that quite frankly strikes a chord with me that I think is something, if I can boldly say, people listening to this podcast that want to grow should really consider. You didn't chase roles. You chased learning opportunities. Right. And to do that, you got to get outside the box and outside your comfort zone is true. You've been driven by learning, really, at the end of the day. It's allowed you to grow your career and responsibility. And I look back, and the reason I say it strikes a parallel with me, I have always wanted to grow. Like I've been passionate about wanting to run a company for probably 20 years. The sooner I realized, forget about the role, focus on the learning, is when I would jump across industries for an opportunity. Similar to you, I was in sports and entertainment, but that came from retail. And then I got recruited in sports and entertainment. And then, I went into printing. Like, what the heck do I know? I still would tell you I struggled between offset and digital and Pantone colors and all that stuff that I knew at a high level as an executive accountable for sales and marketing. I knew I could get the learning on that level because marketing was there. And then jump across to real estate because it's just a bigger transaction than ever. And I knew I could get the learning. And what it does, what I'm trying to share with anyone listening is, don't always chase the role. And that is okay to grow. I don't want people to be afraid that, titles and compensation aren't important because it allows you to live a different life, but chase the learning and that will happen, I think, authentically as you go through it. And that's what I've always admired about you. You've always looked for that next challenge. So let's talk a little bit about that. Can you share with the hundreds, dozens of listeners to this podcast, some examples of where you were put in uncomfortable situations at the time that you resisted, because we've all gone through them, and what you learned out of it on the other end? Because I think that will help people.
Yeah, I mean, the example of that I talk about to this day is the sales training we went through. And you alluded to it in the beginning. And, TLDR, I had to do sales training when I went in for social media. And I wasn't, when I went in as a social media coordinator to the printing house. And it was the program that you put into place. And I didn't know I had to do it. And I was very uncomfortable with sales and my perception of sales, I should say. And I resisted it so hard. I was not told I was going to have to do this. I didn't want to do it. I was probably uncomfortable because I'm a little bit of a perfectionist. And I was sure that this was going to be something I wasn't perfect or good at. And so I went to my boss at the time, who was not you, who went to Terry, who was an angel, and advocated for me that I would not have to do it. And you were like, too bad. And I was like, I've been here for a week. I left a pretty cool job and I cried in the bathroom because I didn't want anybody to see me cry. And I was like, this can be so awful. And like, the process wasn't not awful, but what I got out of it, as like my comfort level, the training was good, but I think my perception of what sales were and how uncomfortable I was with ever having to go through a sales process, having to talk to customers and try and sell something, was what I thought sales was. And what it is and what I learned from it and what I've continued to learn from it is that it's actually what I'm really good at is listening to people. And if you're good at sales, it is that whole training was just like listening training and like how to talk to people training, and coming out of it, like understanding customers was a critical part of my role for social media and for marketing and growing in that role. And so eventually I opened up to it in training. I don't think I was like obstinate and difficult in training, but once I had to I resisted at first, but in the actual process itself, being open to this opportunity opportunity to learn something else and reframing it in my brain as an opportunity to learn. What I really got out of it, and I've continued to get out of it, was that it was really ultimately like just listening training and talking to people training. And like, thankfully, those are two things I'm very good at. And so I felt good about it. And that taught me a little, like even years later, because I eventually brought you in to do that sales training. So when I worked at two companies later, I think, and thought like, what I continue to learn from that experience and what I tell people about is like, I'm going to do what is best for the best interest of the company. And this is really part of what we're going to do. And I need you to get on board. But it's ultimately going to benefit you as a professional. And so that, and then also like reframing my perception of things. Like what I thought sales training was not, I'm doing air quotes for the listeners, but what sales training was decidedly not like used car salesman training or whatever. It was very much like listening to people and understanding their pain points and helping them solve their problems. And you can't be everything to everyone, and sometimes it's not going to fit, but understanding the process to go through that was one that I struggled with at the time, but I'm grateful for, and I've been grateful for it in different ways in different parts of my career.
Cool. I appreciate that, because, and a little side story, Terry did come and try and get you out of the training. And it wasn't as simple as me saying, no, she's doing it.
No.
The background was very much, I see potential in CJ. I know what she can be. And yes, she's in a social media coordinator role. One, she should know how we sell and what the customer needs and what the product is anyways, just to be our voice to the public. I don't want her going on social media selling. I want her going out and educating, but that's what sales is. It's understanding what the customer wants and educating them on where our offering fits in. So I want her to learn that, but I also see her running this department at some point. And if she's going to do that, well, she can't lead salespeople if she doesn't know how to sell. And one of my biggest pet peeves still to this day is marketing people don't understand salespeople and salespeople don't understand marketing people. And yet, when you think about it, they're both accountable for the same result. They've got to drive results, but what they do is they have these separate KPIs that say, look, I drove you impressions, you can't close. And sales is saying, yeah, but we're selling townhouses and you sent me a bunch of people that are 95 years old. Like, none of that makes sense. And what I was trying to do way back then, and I apologize now, and I think I did after to you, because it's the most conflict you and I have ever had. And what I've always loved about you is you've never been shy to challenge me, CJ. And I've always loved that because it's made me better as a leader. But that was tough. Like, you were angry with me, period. And I was angry a little bit that you weren't buying in. And so sometimes, in the rare instance as the leader, you got to make the decision that you know is going to help someone, even though the people don't like it. Like, I had to push you through. I was disappointing Terry because he was going to bat for you. I was disappointing you. But I knew in that instance, that was one of those instances where I had to push you through because you had so much potential and you need to see it. And I really believed it was going to make you a better marketer and a leader one day. And full kudos to you for eventually doing it and being really good at it. Because when you think about it, I love what you said. Sales is just relationships. We spent a lot of time on the art of inquiry versus advocacy in those trainings and how to ask proper questions and understand the customer and then advocate how you can help. And I think you nailed it. And that's going to help you in your leadership skill set. It's going to help you in sales, it's going to help you in marketing. It's going to help you in life. So thank you for, here we are 10 years later. Thank you for eventually doing it. You killed it.
No, it's funny. I talk about that all the time. I was like, it was like my perceptions of this. It was like, if someone had said, oh, you're just going to like learn to like talk to people better, like learn to listen better, or like, I just didn't know what to expect. I think by like hour 0 and 45 minutes, I was like, okay, yeah, I can do this. Great.
Yeah. And it really, I knew that all along. And I think what I learned as a leader in dealing with someone like you, who I knew was going to be a leader. You already were coming up, but like with title and responsibility, this is no surprise to me that you're at where you're at, and your journey has tons of time in front of you. And I'm not just saying that because you're a guest on the show.
You say that to everyone.
The show. But but like, I knew normally what I would have done is said, I don't want to lose CJ's confidence. Let's let her have a pass on this one because she doesn't really need it and I'll give it to her in pieces to make her more comfortable. I learned that I had to push myself as a leader, even though it was uncomfortable. I knew I was disappointing you in the moment. I knew it would help you in the long run. So, yeah, no surprise to me that was an uncomfortable situation, but no surprise to me that you learned from it. Talk to me about any other lessons you've learned along the way, because what I'm going to do next is maybe shift to a few more personal questions in your personal philosophy now that you're growing as a leader and what your team looks like today. But talk to me about any other lessons you've learned along the way from job number one to today that has influenced your leadership style.
I mean, every job that I've had has influenced my leadership style in a different way. And it's, paying attention and listening is what I think I have always done well. And it's, it probably started at the dinner tables in my teenage years when I lived with my parents who were both executives in organizations in technology, but who would come home and, maybe have talked about struggles in their offices and how they dealt with it. So like listening then and then learning from people. I think that the lessons that I've learned have been like how to take whatever situation I'm in, whether it's a difficult situation or a positive situation, and make the best of it as much as I possibly can, and learn as much from it as I possibly can, and give everything I can to it to drive success with the resources that I have, whether they are in a role where I didn't manage anyone and I had X amount of things to do my job. What could I do to make the best of it? Or how can I make the best out of this team and help this team do their best work? Also upwards, like what can I learn from this person? And sometimes if I had a leader who, or the leader of an organization, or like my direct leader who was not the kind of leader that I would want to be, like what could I learn from that? And how could I adapt in the future and keep that in the back of my mind? So I guess I've also taken my leadership lessons in the same way that I've approached my roles. Like I'm going to learn as much as I can out of this from a leadership, ethos, I guess. And like just gut check it against what I'm seeing and how do I react to this? And this is how I want to be led, but then also this person is leading how I think they want to be led. And perhaps that actually doesn't. That was probably my biggest lesson, was over the course of a few jobs, is people might lead how they want to be led, but that may not always be how the people you are leading want to be led. And so, again, that was a long-winded way of saying, like, by looking at the way different people have led, some of them, what I've learned, were leading the way they wanted to be led, and that didn't align with how I wanted to be led. And so I took on sort of leading people how they would want to be led in order to get to where we needed to be.
How do you uncover how people want to be led?
I mean, I ask that question. I'll have that conversation. I have that conversation in interviews. I have that conversation in performance reviews. I have that conversation if something goes wrong or there's an issue, like with a performance or a result, or something went really well, and like just having those conversations with the people that I work with, and listening. Gosh, I feel like I'm saying that a lot.
No,
I just find that that's just not as common as you would think. I think people don't maybe listen very well all the time.
I think there's two things that you touched on that are simplistic that aren't that common. One is the listening skill. I think leaders want to dictate and advocate a lot. And that doesn't mean, when I use the word dictate, that the leader's a dictator and they're mean. It just means they want to give direction and direction only. And the problem with that is you give people clarity, but you don't give them learning opportunities. So that's simplicity in listening to people. The other one that I really liked, and I was going to challenge you on one more question, but It might put you on the spot, but I'll do it anyways. I asked you, how do you know how people want to be led? And you shared, I have that dialogue. I do it in the interviews. I do it in my communication. I do it in my performance reviews. I build that into my process. It's an interview question of, what does a good leader look like? What does a bad leader look like? What are you looking from me or my director or my manager? And then I build that into my connection meetings. I got to hold you all accountable to the same expectations, but I can lead you differently depending on what is your best fit. So tell me about that. And I do all that, but let me ask you the question, because I'm just reiterating what you have said. How many times have people asked you that in your career?
Not often.
I don't think I did back then. Like, I really don't think my first conversation with you, CJ, was, okay, now that you report into me and you're my assistant here at BMO Field, how do I best work with you? Now, I would think through time, my heart was always in the right place and I wanted to behave that way. And we built a strong relationship that influenced you to treat others that way. But I never asked you that process. I had to learn that through my career. The reason I asked you that question, and I appreciate the answer, like I can't remember, is that's the shift that people are relying on people like you as you continue to grow and be a leader. Because I believe it's the right way to lead. I also think that today's younger workforce is going to demand it of us. And if you want to keep talent, you got to find a way to motivate your team, just like a sports coach does, right? And in the old days, a sports coach would say, friggin' do it, or you're going to be off the team. And now the athlete goes, good, I'll go sign for 24 million somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
And so they have to find a way to lead. And I love that you said that, and I love that you were honest that you haven't experienced very much of that through your career. So that's a takeaway. I'd love people listening to that is find a process, whichever one it is, to make sure you understand how your people want to be led. And I think that's admirable that you ask people that question. Let's shift a little bit if you don't mind. Well, it's my show. We're shifting, okay?
Okay.
There's servant leadership.
Yeah, I was like, that's fine.
My podcast, CJ, just answer the damn questions, okay?
Yeah, you tell me what you wanted me to do, boss man. Just whatever.
That's
Revert back.
Exactly how we work together.
Yeah, revert back.
Oh God, I always tell the story about BMO Field and the night. Now I'm going to get off in storytelling here, but I think this is an important one. The night I had to bring you guys all in and apologize. BMO Field was a stressful thing for me. I was probably in over my head as a leader and just finding my way. And again, talk about difficult situations and learning. We got that place open, not through my efforts, through all of yours. You guys, Kurt, Vince, Jody, oh God, TJ, Jamie, I can go, Shannon, like there's so many people that did so much there that I'm forgetting. But I was falling under stress because we were under a tight timeline and a tight budget with an event coming up. And we used to do our event walkthroughs and our operational walkthroughs, and we'd go through all the task items for the day. And I brought you all in my office at BMO Field, and I tore a strip off all of you. And I told you, you better go home and get some rest because you did nothing today, and you better contribute something tomorrow. And I remember you guys all left, and I sat there and I bawled. I was so embarrassed of myself. Like I really was. And I felt so guilty because you guys had been busting your ass, and I couldn't bite my tongue in the moment. Yeah, we didn't get enough done that day. But it wasn't from a lack of effort, and it was terrible leadership. And I remember you coming in the next morning, and I sat you all down and I apologized to all of you. And I said, that can never, ever happen again. That's not okay. And I often go back and wonder why you guys cut me some slack. Sorry, now I'm diverting from the question. Why did you guys cut me slack in that situation? Because it was terrible. Here I am preaching about servant leadership, but if anyone would have been in that room 12 years ago or whatever it was, you would have said, that guy's an asshole. I never want to work for him. In that moment, why'd you cut me slack?
Yeah, but like anyone who would have just been like, oh, this happens to be the day I'm observing Mark's leadership would have been like, yeah, that guy's an asshole. But like we all worked for you for a long time and you had never done anything like that. And so like you are a human being. I think we all acknowledge that. And I think it was difficult for all of us. But like you as our leader, like definitely were responsible. And I feel this too now. So I get it even more now. So now I'm going to like now I'd be like, how dare anyone say anything bad about that moment? It happens to the best of us. But like, you'd never done anything like that. You were like Mr. Pump Up the Tires of your team. And so, yeah, it was like not the best feeling because it was late too, right? It was really late, I
It
think.
was midnight, CJ. I think you guys had all worked like
so late.
a 14-hour day. Mr. Work-Life Balance now and just put you through a 14-hour day.
Yeah. And so like, I don't know, we came back the next day, we were like, it's not like we didn't even have, because of our work schedules, like 10 hours to sit on it. It was like, okay, well, that didn't last long, and you never did it again. So
yeah, I have done it again, just to be honest.
not during that time, right? Like, that's not what it was like for us.
I didn't do it at MLSC, and I guess the reason I just will finish this point because I think it's an important lesson maybe for people. Again, if I can be so bold to say there's a lesson I want to teach people here, but I did it again at Fusion years later. I was in about my 5th year of 6, and I was misaligned. Things weren't going the way that I believed in, and that doesn't mean they were a bad way. But leadership was going in a different direction, and I viewed it differently. And I was really coming down hard on my people, like I really was, and I had the same scenario. And it didn't happen very often in the 10 years in between, or 8 years, whatever it was. But I took the same course. I apologized to everybody and said, this isn't me. I was very transparent. Here's the stress that I'm dealing with. It's still on me as a leader in my growth, I guess, journey to put these to bed. The reason I share all this, CJ, is like, you've always been calm. Like, you're really good, and you work with me like the chicken with his head cut off at that time. You were my right-hand person. How do you do it? Like, because as you lead, and you're going to lead more and more people, and you're going to have more and more impact through your career, I know it. It's a skill you want to hold on to. So how do you keep calm, and what would you share with others who are going through the same journey to keep calm in front of their teams? Because you do that really well.
So thank you. I think that if I am being honest and transparent, it was easier to keep calm when I had less responsibility. So I would say that I remain steady and strong for my team. But I also don't think that calm is always, because when things are crazy, like, it's disingenuous to be sort of putting on a front of calmness. I can put on a front of confidence and be like, we're going to get through this. Things are crazy. And I think that maybe, like, I am a very transparent, heart on my sleeve type of leader, where I think that builds trust and an open relationship and an open dialogue and a safe space. And I am not a perfect employee. I'm not always calm, but I think I'm always confident that we will get it done. I'm always confident that the team will get it done. And I sometimes think, like, it was a lot easier to be calm when I had less to be responsible for, but the responsibility does drive me. And I think that my team can be not calm sometimes because there's a lot going on, and that's okay. And just knowing that we have each other's backs. I think that we all knew that when, you had our back, even though, like, you can tell us that, like, oh, you guys didn't get anything done, but if someone else had said that about us, I think you would have unleashed on them. And I think we knew that. And so
thank you.
I think that is something that, like, if something goes wrong in my team, like, I'm going to be the one to eat shit. That's on me. And somehow, somewhere, that's because I didn't communicate something properly, or I wasn't there to remove a barrier, or I wasn't there. So I am constantly going to be confident, but not always calm.
I love the way you answered that in regards to shifting it from calmness to confidence. And I look at past guests, Richard, and one of the things I asked Richard was a similar question. When they were doing firerichardpetty.com, there was websites that were flying planes over the Air Canada Center. I said, I never saw you panic. And he very openly said it hurt him. It hurt his feelings. But he couldn't come into work showing us that because we would lose confidence. He believed in what he was doing, so he had to show confidence. He didn't use the word calmness either, which is really interesting, and it's a good way to spin. See, that's why I invite smart people like you on this podcast, because I would have been telling people stay calm, and what I should be telling people is stay confident. You learn from everybody. Well said.
Yeah, like confident in your team. Like I've always been confident in my team. I built an amazing team, and I've had amazing teams. Like even I was part of amazing teams, and so I would say like, yeah, I probably would, if people were like firecjtremblay.com, I'd be like, these guys are, I would like be lamenting to my team about what a bunch of jerks these people are. But yeah, it's that's a lot. I don't know how I would handle in that situation.
And it's funny, I look back on the sports entertainment examples and the gaps in my career when we had that whole debacle with under 20s, with the cops and it being on TV and the Prime Minister of Chile demanding an apology from the Prime Minister of Canada. And I did not show calmness or confidence, right? And so it's interesting, what I'm trying to share with these podcasts is it's okay to learn through your career. If you're stuck right now, your opportunity to grow is right in front of you. It's in front of you with the mistake you're faltering on today because you don't know any better and you have to experience it the first time, right? And so if I look at that confidence versus calmness is such a great theme, because calmness, that's great. I can pretend I know what I'm doing. And you guys are all going, oh, he's not freaking out. That's great. But I have no freaking plan. Like you guys want to see me confident to get us through, oh God, another 10 minutes of pepper spray, right? Or whatever it was in that moment. So really, I love what you said there, CJ, and I'm going to carry that if you don't mind. I won't make it mine. I'll always give you credit, but I love the confidence versus calmness. Let's talk a little bit about family, if that's okay. You alluded to it, and I want to talk about it from the perspective of, has it formed you as a leader? Is there anything consciously, subconsciously, as you've grown up that shows up in your leadership style from the way you spent time with your family as a child? Let's not go back on the leather couch and what did you do like that deep, but are there themes there?
Yeah, I would say I'm like super blessed. The women in my life, I have had a great privilege to like learn from them both as like a human being and also a professional. My mom went back to university, newly separated, 2 kids, like single mom in it, went back to university for an engineering degree when I was like 8, 10 maybe. And my brother was like, 5 or 7 or something. I don't really know. It's like age, but like seeing my mom go back to school when I was like really young, like 2 young children, she would have like people that now I think, holy man, there were like these first or second or third year university people coming over to my mom's house to do engineering projects with like 2 kids hanging out. And she just like always made it work. And she never made us like feel like we were in the way. She was always got her work done. And despite like conditions that other people might have found to be too much, she went and got a 4-year engineering degree at Ottawa U. Like, so I remember being so proud of her, and just like also amazed. And I wasn't even in university yet. I didn't know what that meant. So like my admiration for that has like grown over time. And just like, there are no conditions really under which if you want something bad enough, you can work hard enough to get it. And so that has, and seeing, I think, someone like want to go back to university and do more. She had like I think a college degree from like the CEGEP system, but wanted a university, like a technical degree. And so she wanted that. And so because she wanted more and was curious and wanted to learn. And so I think that probably drove me in my career as well. But also I've been incredibly privileged because my stepmom is just like a super bad bitch. Like she's so cool. And I didn't know this and I didn't appreciate it at the time because she went to the University of Waterloo, got a double degree in math and computer science, and was really in the forefront of technology in Silicon Valley and was like one of the first female executives in like R&D or engineering or something. And there, and you can tell I'm like super well versed in tech things. My engineer parents and I went into marketing. But and so I saw my stepmom become this like incredible woman in the tech industry in California, and then in Waterloo, where she now, she retired, that didn't take, and then launched another company. And that was what I alluded about earlier. It was like my stepmom and my dad would have like conversations at the dinner table where she would talk about someone's performance. And she would also be like, this guy is, not delivering. But simultaneously, she was also very human, where she would say like, I have to like help this person get better, or help this person grow, and like help them sort of either recommit or readjust, and sometimes make hard decisions. Mm-hmm. But she was also this really like human person, where if that same person was not, they had something going on in their life, like she was always really thoughtful. And like, if their kid was sick, she would bring them my little sister. I think one time she brought like a book that my little sister really liked for their kid who was sick. Or she was just always like a really real person, but also being like a super effective leader.
Yeah, you can do both.
Yeah, you can. And so just having like front row seats to that, I think, and probably not appreciating it enough at the time. And then now she's founded a company about 10 years ago. She founded a company that has just sort of gone like unicorn status, and which is amazing. And so it's just like such a privilege. And as I grew and became more of a leader, I have leaned on her more and leveraged that opportunity to learn. And I feel like I have this person in my life that I can go to for both like family recipes and also recipes for success.
Yeah.
But
nice.
Like but she's like, so I've, and both her and my mom have like, are very different, but I've learned so much from them. And sort of that support system that I have, like all my parents, my family have just sort of, and they're all like literally my mom, my dad, my stepmom, my stepdad, I think they're like all engineers. And wow. Even though I went a different path, I was able to sort of like learn a lot from them. I guess there you go. More learning from people around you.
Awesome. I find with great leaders that there's something that they've been exposed to growing up that sits in their DNA somehow. Like it's just there. It's a piece of them. And sometimes you have to get a little bit older to look back and go, oh, that's kind of why I'm the way I am. And sometimes you realize it live in the moment. So cool that you've had those positive influences in your life. And I think the beauty with that is, I did my holiday wish and I cried yesterday. I don't want to get emotional, but it's how your parents live on. It's tremendous to see the things that positively impact other people. And when those things come together in your heart and in your mind, it's like, oh my God, was I lucky? So good on you.
Yeah. Oh yeah, awesome. No. The Kim Tremblay and Claudette Tremblay and like Kim and Frank, my whole family like is well known amongst my teams. I was like, this isn't for me. This is what I learned from Kim, and this is what I'm sharing with you guys today.
It's awesome. So, just reminds you, like, you're leading everywhere, whether that's in work, whether it's around the dinner table, even when you don't realize it, and you're learning too. So that's all. I'm really glad I asked you that question. Okay, we're kind of getting to the end here, and I don't want to take more than an hour of your time. So let's talk a little bit about now and your philosophy. So, CJ, you're becoming your own professional, your own leader. You're going to have a dramatic influence. You already probably do. We've talked a lot about how you got to where you're at and talk to us about CJ's philosophy and your drive. What drives you and what do you want to be known for when this is all said and done as a leader, when you're retired and doing what you would love to do outside of professional development? What do you want to be known for? What does that look like?
I think just help. Oh gosh, this is so dorky, but like really
dork away.
I know. I'm like, I'm on the right show for this, but yes.
Did you like literally just call me a dork?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
But we go way back. It's not, where's the lie, Mark?
I want to write this down. How do you spell dork? Is it,
Yeah, just like that, actually.
Yeah,
that's perfect.
got it. Yeah.
So, but it's like, because I've been so privileged and because I've been so blessed, and what you talked about earlier, how like you're leading in every parts of your life and you might not even know it, but it's just like that authenticity as a person, and the authenticity as a leader, like that authenticity builds trust, like that, and with the trust of your team, you can sort of do more than in a relationship where people maybe don't trust you. And so I think a lot about my stepmom, Kim, who, when I think, like, she just retired in April. And so seeing like a 25-minute tribute video of like what she's meant to people, like there were people on that video that still worked with her that she brought to different companies who literally followed her for their entire career. And over 20 years, she was the only like leader they've ever had because she is so good at what she does. And so when I think about like the mark I want to leave, it's very much on having empowered and lifted the people that I have worked with in there to be the best version of themselves, whatever that is, right? Like not everybody wants to be the CEO. Not everybody wants to be like a big leader. Some people just want to be good at their job. And so whatever it is that I do, I would love for my mark to be that I have helped them in some way be the best sort of professional version of themselves. And like, you know, ideally personal as well, but like mostly professional, which is where my responsibilities lie, is really helping them just elevate to the top of their game, whatever game they're playing.
Could you condense down a philosophy of the way you lead? So maybe I'll give you an example. For me, it's really simple. What I want to be known for, not what I want to be known for, what the way I believe I lead today is understanding individuals, finding out their learning gaps, and closing them. That's it. It's pretty simple. If we have business objectives, the quicker I can connect with someone to understand where there's opportunity and help them close that gap, the more successful they can be. We're going to have a better life. We're going to have a better company. And I've kind of been able to narrow that down. Could you narrow down your philosophy in leadership? I know that's a real tough question, but.
You know, as you were asking that question, I was like panicking. I was like, oh my God, no, I can't. But actually, and I say this all the time, half joking, but I think genuine is like, I find myself as I grow in my career and as I take on more leadership, but like I don't really do anything. Like I'm not deep in the weeds in a lot of the work anymore. My only job is to make sure that people on the team have everything they need to do their job to the best of their abilities. And that might be removing barriers. It might be making a connection with some relationship that I have in another department or another company. It might be getting resources, advocating for more resources. It might be support on a personal development issue. It might be, so it can be any number of things. And it can be big in scope or very narrow. It can be, you know, holding their hand through the first time they go through this long process, or it can be sometimes for them to do their job to the best of their ability, they need me to step out of the way. Great. So whatever it is that I do, I'm like, I feel like sometimes I'm like, do I do anything anymore? Like I haven't been in Google Analytics in like 3 months. I haven't posted a social media post in years.
Me too.
Yeah. But on my corporate account, like that hasn't been a thing I have done. I used to do it all the time. I tweeted all the time. But like, as I step back, I feel sometimes, because obviously like I do things. Obviously like I have roles and responsibilities but sometimes it feels like I'm not in the weeds and my only job. So I'm just like, I don't really do anything. My only job is to make sure that other people on my team have everything they need to do their job to the best of their abilities.
Never lose that philosophy. You just nailed it. And I think it's one, again, if the 80 people who are listening to this podcast, 12 of them are still with us at this point. Uh, Never lose that philosophy of, your job is to make sure people have what they need to succeed. It's so simplistic. It's a lot of hard work. I know you say, yeah, I don't really feel like I do things anymore. That's the job. That's
Yeah.
the job as a senior leader, is get stuff out of the way so your people can succeed. I loved how you said it. Don't lose it. Um, I would tell people who are listening to this, if you do that, you'll have a successful career, whatever that looks like. I look at, how did you come from some whack jobs assistant at MLSC to a social media coordinator to a manager to now a manager on a larger scale and more of an impact internationally. I hear two things. I've always wanted to get out and learn and take on that challenge. And as I lead, I help people get stuff out of the way. It's pretty simple, right? That takes years to build that expertise and skill set. But it's your anchor, and I love it. I've always loved that about you, CJ. Talk to me now about your team and your accountability. So let's kind of wrap this up with, maybe a little bit more functional stuff, and so people can learn about what you're doing today. So what's the role? What's the company? What does your team look like?
Sure. So I work now in international education and English language testing, which is part of the international education sector, which is very much connected to immigration and the economy. And I work for we're a Canadian company based in Vancouver, and I work for basically what is the Canadian test for immigration into Canada and the Canadian test that international students who want to study in Canada have to take to prove their English language proficiency. So we are part of the international education ecosystem, and we are part of the Canadian immigration ecosystem, which is why when I went to do my MBA, I wanted an MBA that had like a bit of a foreign policy bend to it to better understand how this fits from a policy standpoint and from a sort of international relations standpoint, because we have immigrants and international students coming to Canada for a very number of reasons. And so this test is uniquely for Canada and competes against, I always say like we're the David to the Goliath of our competitor. I used to work for Goliath, and it was a really cool opportunity to come work for the David and try and make it sort of a bigger competitive player in the game. And so it's been really cool to work on our international expansion. And when I came to this organization, it had, 2 marketing people, and because of the nature of our business, we didn't really have to compete. The government said you can take this test or that test, and we were one of them. So when you have your market made for you for immigration, it's like marketing is really just making sure people know where to go, as opposed to like having to compete on anything. And so I was brought in because the academic testing market is a little bit more competitive. And so I had to level up and scale our marketing operations in Canada and take this, what was just a domestic testing company, and expand it internationally. And so I wasn't responsible for the expanding. I was responsible for ensuring that we could market in those expanded markets. And so in order to do that, I think making sure we had to scale up from a just capacity standpoint with people in different very specialized roles, right? So we needed social media, but we also needed video production and content. And so we needed to do a lot more. And so we had to do work with stakeholders, and we did a lot of events. So just structuring a department was what I did, building up our marketing capacities, but then filling those roles with people with lived experiences and making sure we had a really diverse team that represented and could connect with our test taker community and the potential immigrants and the prospective international students, because I just think it's really important to have a lot of like that lived experience on the team to better support our test takers. And so building a very diverse team. So we have, I think, half of our team is like, we're either former test takers or immigrants who took our competitor test or whose family went through the process. And it was an intentional choice to also make sure we had a good mix of gender diversity and sort of ethnicity, because we are obviously, because that just yields better results. We also are a little bit of a younger team, just from a recent, not for me, I'm the old lady.
You're calling me old, I get it. So like, I get it, it's okay.
I'm the old lady on the team. So I have a lot of younger professionals, either like their second job. And so part of my role is seeing their growth now. And so it has been the privilege of like my career to date. Like, you can build a stadium and that's cool and that'll be there forever. But like a totally other piece is like building a team and building up like these professionals in an industry or in their specific skill set. So whether they're like a very good video producer or whether they're like committed to the education and immigration sectors, like whatever it is that they're really interested in, being able to like build this unit that is a unit that is producing incredible content and really valuable content to our test takers, which helps drive results, right? Like, we are seeing gains in market share, and we're seeing growth, and that we're doing that sort of in a very positive way in a sector that is doing good things. That's been the privilege of my life working for, like, I work for them basically. Like, they're amazing.
So cool. So far.
Yeah.
Privilege of your life so far. There's more ahead.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna take you through just some quick rapid fire questions here. So I'm gonna challenge you to give me, I'm not gonna hold you to a one sentence answer. It's my show. We can bend the rules a little bit. I'm gonna take you through 3 or 4 questions and then we'll wrap it up. So number 1, what do you think is the biggest gap you still need to close as a leader?
Oh, probably like managing up a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. My poker face is not great.
Me too. I think my face bubbles when I'm in disagreement with something. I've been told that you don't say anything, but people can tell you're really pissed off.
Yeah, it's like, you're not invisible, Mark.
Yeah, we both have to work on that.
I'm not invisible. Like, I have to remember that. Yeah.
I wonder, the one thing I get a lot is I can tell when you're feeling negative or upset because you're not positive. So when you're normally upbeat and you're high energy, the minute you do this, like, okay, what's wrong with them? And it's not always something wrong with me. Sometimes that's how I look when I think. But usually, yeah, what's wrong with the guy? What are, in one sentence, some words you'd give someone on the same journey as you? What's words of advice you'd give somebody?
Be open. I never thought this industry was what I was going to be. I was a marketer, and then I realized marketing's marketing. And doing it in different industries was kind of like speed dating. If the industry that you're in doesn't feel right, but it feels okay, it's okay to try new things. And I remember when I connected with this industry, it felt like, oh, I met the one. It's like, just being open. I never would have thought about this. And so whether sort of early on in your journey or you're like feeling stuck, like moving different industries, especially as like sports people, I went to school for sports. It's a very, very committed industry. So I would say like being open to different industry, because the next thing you know is you'll find the one.
Cool. Any parting thoughts?
No, I think just thank you for doing this. I think that I have no like pearls of wisdom to give beyond just keep like, don't let places change you and keep that drive. Um,
I'm glad I asked you that question. It resonates. Don't let places change you. I think that's important because it does it to a lot of people. I think we've both seen it,
yeah,
and it's unfortunate.
yeah.
Okay, well let me finish with this. One, how do people find you if they want to?
I guess the most likely would be on either LinkedIn or Twitter. I'm on Twitter a lot still. It's
What's your
Sin Tremblay, so CYN TREMBLAY.
And people can find you by searching CJ Trombley on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Let me leave you with this, CJ. One, certainly thank you for doing this. I appreciate it. I appreciate you always trusting me. I really appreciate you paying it forward. I love that you have a leadership style that is, like you said, very specifically, make sure people have what they need to succeed. You've said you've been lucky to experience that from your family and learn that and see that in other workplaces. I think it's really important that more and more of us continue to do that. So kudos, thank you for doing that. I am beyond proud of you as a leader. I'm even more proud to call you my friend. You are one of those tremendous people in life, CJ, and not only am I excited to see your future, I'm so excited for the people that get to work with you every day, today and in the future. So please keep being you. You're awesome.
Oh, well, that is very kind and generous. And you are definitely one of those people who always indulged my curiosities and were like, sure, let me explain why these sales are connected to this. You and Terry and sort of other bosses I've had along the way have always really indulged me, but definitely like when that is, you're my first boss ever. And you hired me as out of intern. I just hired my first ever former intern into like a job. And so it just felt like a really, like not even a month ago. So
Cool.
It just feels like a really cool thing to where I was an intern at Mlsc and you gave me, I know you're like, you earned it, but like you gave me that chance and like you chose me out of everybody and believed I could do it, and sort of being able to do that now and having just hired sort of the first time we've been able to hire a former intern has been a really cool. It's like the first intern we ever had in our department. Now it works full time with us, which is great.
It's amazing. Now off to the races, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like a 9:07. I've got to run to.
Well,
but no, it's really great.
Cool. Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you doing this. I'll take a commission out of all the public appearances you get paid to do after doing this podcast. Let's say 8%. Like, what's 8% of zero?
Yeah, I'm the one who just does all those fees for free. I'm just like, speak everywhere for free. I gotta get, yeah.
What's that?
I said, no, it's you doing those, sharing this. And when people ask to want to hear about what it is that drives me as a leader, where like my journey, and hopefully that helps other people, you just kind of like, yes, I'll do whatever you like.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just teasing with the 8% of zero, but and to me that's a big thing, right? Like, so Richard and Bob and like yourself and Kate Burness, for heaven's sakes, on TSN, and Lisa, all just saying, okay, you're doing this to share with other people so they might learn something. I'm in. I think that's cool. I think we need to keep doing more of that. But thank you for doing it, CJ. I love you. You know that. You know where I'm at. If I can help you in any ways, happy holidays to you and the fam.
Thanks. You too. Thanks for having me. This is so nice.
Okay, take care.
Bye.